Common Sense Media activated.
You are now entering Dad Mode, a podcast with a dad's eye view. And we are your hosts, the friendly neighborhood amazing dad,
Rich.
And I am the dad of steel, E. James. Yes, yes, y'all.
And you don't stop.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a nice day. Well, not really nice. It was rainy today, but you know, it's all good. Every day's a great day as long as you make it that way.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So this episode's another special one. We got another wonderful guest, good friend of mine, Mr. Ned Brandt. How you doing, sir?
Oh, shoot. I'm doing well. It's been a great day. Luckily, the kids have been with their mom, so I've had peace and quiet. So it's been really nice.
Hey, we're going to give you a round of applause.
There we go.
Shout out to peace and quiet on a Sunday. Yeah, and then in this episode, we're going to discuss co-parenting and what one can do to succeed as a co-parent. And then other tips and tricks and shenanigans we like to get into on this here podcast. So,
Oh yeah, gonna be a good episode right here. I'm excited for it.
as am I, man. And I'll let him tell us a little bit more about himself momentarily. But me and Ned, we go way back, man, way back. This dude was like my first, like a real supervisor in a tech job, as many of you know, and some of you don't know, or maybe it's a little mix of both. I'm in the IT space, and so that's. This guy here was like one of the coolest leads I've ever encountered, and we've been friends ever since, man. So, but I don't want to steal your thunder, brother. You want to tell the folks a little bit about yourself?
All righty. Well, so I'm 47. I had my kids a little bit later in life than some people do, but I wouldn't change it. It was the right time for me and my ex-wife, and we're just making the best out of it.
Yeah.
My boys are 11 and 9. So yeah, I'm 47. So I call them my gym membership. Just keeping up with them keeps me pretty active.
Oh, I bet.
Because they have infinite energy and I don't. Outside of that, just like E, I'm in the IT space. I've been working in that area for about 20 some years, and just kind of stumbled into it as a career. It was kind of crazy the way it all worked out. I was between jobs, and my mom was like, "Hey, these people are hiring for tech support. You've always been good at it. You ought to check it out." And I went, got hired, and 20 years later, here we are.
As an aside, isn't it weird, or not really weird? Isn't it odd? Isn't it strange? Sorry, I had to channel my Tucker there. A lot of IT guys I know got into it accidentally. At least the older guys, because it was one of those things where you could find your way around a computer a little bit, and then people would say, "Hey, you should do this for a job." I guess I could, huh?
Well,
yeah.
Well, so back in the day, my dad was always like, "You better not break this computer."
Right?
If you do, you better figure out how to fix it. And sure enough, I broke it plenty of times and learned how to fix it and get it back up and running. And
the rest is history.
Now it's my job. But other than that, I'm a musician. I play bass in a couple of metal bands. I've been doing that for like 35 years. And it's something I don't ever see myself stopping. The day I quit playing music for good, that's the day a little bit of my soul dies.
You and I need to collab on something at some point. Maybe do one of these podcast themes with you on bass.
And because I've always said work pays the bills, music pays the soul.
Yeah,
there you go. I like that.
It absolutely is true. But yeah, so dad life has been interesting. My kids, at least to me, are pretty darn funny. They
As they are.
they have some vivid imaginations and an incredible way of not cursing but still getting the point across as if they were to curse.
I feel that.
Yeah, I played some music for my kids, and the DJ on the radio said, "Oh, this next guy, he's really good." And I was like, "All right, well, here, guys, the DJ said this next guy's really good. We should check it out." I knew they would hate it. And the song lasted 10 seconds. And my oldest son, he says, "Dad, this song, it sounds like the smell of a Taco Bell bathroom."
Oh, man. Morbid. Oh.
And I was like, "My goodness, kid, that is the most eloquent way I have ever heard someone talk so much trash."
Exactly.
Man, he's like,
exactly.
back to the drawing board. Man.
Please try again.
Exactly.
Hey, man, I got a question for you. Have you always wanted to be a dad?
So I'm an only child. So there was never pressure, have a kid or the family name dies. But still was like, let's carry it on. I knew I didn't want to be a dad in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
Because I was struggling enough just for me. And I was like, man, I don't even know how much diapers cost, but man, if I can barely, scrape by with just me, I'm going to wait and get established a bit. And, so that's, by the time I was 35, it was like, hey, I kind of got a career going. I'm not paycheck to paycheck anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's do it. Why not?
Yeah.
And
that's how it goes.
And so I've been an active musician since 1996, and about 3-4 months. No, it was 2 months before my son was born. My band actually got offered a record deal from a small label in Florida. And I remember talking to these guys, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you see all parts of the world. You'll do this. We'll give you like $50,000 to record and finance a tour and all this." And I was like, my first son is about to be born. I'm kind of happy being at home, playing on weekends, being a local yokel, and I've got a hot shower and clean socks every day. And plus I'll be here when my kid's born to, help raise him from day one. Why would I want to take away from having that? They're like, "Oh, well, what about, seeing all these places?" I'm like, dude, I grew up military. I lived in Japan.
Right. That's nothing new to you.
I'm like, I've been to Europe several times, and I realize how fortunate I am to be able to say that. But, we could take a military flight for $10 a person. So
I wish it was like that. I wish I can do that. Golly,
for real.
like stupid expensive.
Yeah.
Where I'm at, it's like $2,000-$3,000 to fly a whole family of 4. So it's ridiculous.
Easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm just gonna turn it down because I'm totally content doing what I'm doing, and it was a choice.
Yeah. What kind of dad are you?
I am tough but fair, and I give them the opportunity to say if they think I'm not being fair. I'll ask them. I was like, "Look, you done messed up. Here's what your punishment's going to be." And I'm like, "Is this fair? Is it fair to you based on what happened?" "Yeah, it is, Dad." "Okay, then you can't argue."
You mentioned tough but fair. I think I'm kind of in that same vein too. Another thing that I try to also be is consistent.
Yes.
Because especially when both of you are parents of multiple children, right? But the one thing that you have to do with consistency is make sure that if you hand out a punishment to one for a certain crime a certain way, you better do it for the other one, because they will call you out. They will call you out. Now, there wasn't necessarily a punishment. I'll give you an example. So my girls both play basketball, and we allowed them to wear Crocs. It was a little cooler yesterday, but we said, hey, wear your slides or your Crocs. That way you can slide out of them, throw your basketball shoes on, and hit the court, right? The other one, I'm like, you don't need your Crocs or your slides because you're going to be in the stands watching. So we had a game in the morning and a game in the evening for their two different leagues. And so we said that in the morning. Afternoon comes, and my oldest, she's getting ready for her game, and my younger wants to wear her Crocs. And I didn't get a chance to say it yet. No, you know the rule. She's like, oh, wow. So she gets to do this, blah, 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 blah. And that irritated me because she's being a smart mouth about it. But again, the consistency and the fairness, right?
Yeah.
If I would have let her, kids are calculating and watching that and going, okay, I see how it is.
Well, even if it's not like a punishment or something like that, I think consistency is key.
Absolutely.
So Fridays, I take my boys into school, and Friday morning, I drop my youngest off, and then me and my oldest go to a donut shop and get a donut. And then I take him to school. Honestly, I do it because traffic at that time just sucks. And the amount of time it takes us to go to the donut shop, get our donut, eat it, and then get to school, all that traffic's gone. And I'm like, hey, it's just a convenience thing. Now, my youngin' would never know. But so what I do is I pick him up in the afternoon, and then I take him to go get a donut, and then we go to his older brother's school and pick him up. And then that way they both get a donut on Donut Friday.
Donut Friday.
And then that way the older one doesn't have a secret to keep from his little brother. Because, if we'd done that and didn't do the same for his brother, then, his feelings would get hurt. And
absolutely.
Truth be told, if I were him, it would hurt my feelings too. So.
Yeah, kids are going to be like that. They just want, and they want fairness too. That's just the honest truth when it comes to punishment but anything when it comes to getting anything from anybody.
But the other really important thing is follow through. Staying true to your word when you say, hey, if you keep this behavior up, I'm not going to let you go on a camping trip.
Yeah.
And that's a real example of mine for my oldest son. He was acting up in school, and I said, hey, man, if you don't get this under control, you're not going to go on that camping trip with Cub Scouts. I am. Because I was a den leader. I like to kind of jokingly give people my life resume. And, that is, I'm an IT guy. I'm a heavy metal bass player. I'm a member of the PTA, and I'm a Cub Scout den leader. And people look at me and they're like, what on earth, dude? How do you? And I'm like, hey, you got to diversify. But so I'm actually not a Cub Scout den leader anymore. And it's nice to have a break from that. But my youngin still does Cub Scouts. I'm just not a leader for him.
Gotcha.
But so anyway, I was a leader, and I had activities that I was leading on this camp out, and I didn't think it was fair to all these other kids that I just flake on them when my kid was just being a jerk. So I said, hey, man, is it fair to all these other kids for me to not go because you were misbehaving? No. So I still went. The school heard about it. And they're like, dude, did you seriously do this? And I was like, yeah, I did. I was like, what good would it do my son if I told him he couldn't go and then let him go anyway?
That's consistency.
And
Yeah.
they're like, we wish we had more parents like you. And I'm like, thanks. But
That's awesome, man.
But I'm also really honest with my kids too. I'm like, look, I know I'm not the perfect dad, but you know what? I try. And my youngest, that kid, I swear he's got a heart of gold. He says, Dad, it's okay. Everybody makes mistakes sometimes. And it just kind of got me right in the heart. And it's just like, man.
It's crazy to see how they mature in front of your eyes, huh?
Yeah.
And like the wisdom that they acquire. I mean, we always associate wisdom with, age, like older age. Wisdom can be had at any age, especially when you've lived a few years. There's things that an older child will teach a younger child, like the big brother will teach the little brother. Hey, man, you don't want to do X because Y will happen or whatever. I'm not giving any true examples, but it's because they've learned it. They've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
They're in this thing called life too. And that's how it goes. I want to take a step back for just a moment. You mentioned being a musician. I just want to, and the other things that you do for your children, because, Rich and myself, we're both active dads. And so we totally get that. How do you find the balance with these activities?
It's called not getting any sleep. No, seriously.
Ain't that the truth?
Seriously though, I do all of my band practices on days that I know that they are with their mom. We used to have practice on a day where the boys were with me, and so I got them like gun range quality hearing protection, and said, hey, y'all need to wear your cans at all times. And because once you lose your hearing, it never comes back.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
and I've taken them to see us play. It helps that, my kids are little metalheads just like I am. And, and they had a blast. We were playing outside and they were about 40, 50 feet from the stage. So they didn't really need their hearing protection at that point. But, with consistency, I'm sitting up there, I'm playing my bass, rocking out. And I look up and I see my oldest son and he doesn't have his hearing protection on.
Oh,
and so I'm playing a song, both hands are busy. And I wait for him to look at me and I'm playing, and then point to my ears real quick and then get back to playing. Didn't miss a note. But my son, he sees that and he says, oh, shoot. And he put his hearing protection back on. And it was funny. They had to get X's on their hands indicating that they're minors. And I'm like, y'all, if the bartenders can't tell that these guys are minors, I think there's a bigger problem.
They're checking the box at that point.
But no, apparently this outdoor venue, they'd had a problem with TABC and they just said anyone who's a minor gets a mark. And I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so I had them hold their hands together, each individually. I'm like, all right, put your hands together, make a metal face. And I took a picture of them and I said, all right, y'all are straight edge. and they didn't even understand, but they thought it was cool. So I'm like, all right, hey, that's what counts. Yeah. For them, it was the experience.
Right.
And,
have you boys ever do you boys want to go into music or have they expressed that?
Oldest wants to play guitar. Youngin wants to play drums. I play bass. Yeah, we're going to have a family band.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's the same path, man. My oldest wants to play guitar. Youngest wants to play drums. And my son wants to play piano.
Nice.
Actually, he's getting piano lessons right now at school.
Awesome.
Dang.
I think the nearest thing that my kids does in musical things is like Beat Saber. The little VR game. My daughter likes that game. And she's like, yeah, this is like drums with Star Wars. It's like, yeah, but, not the same. But it is what it is. He's really good at it. But that's just, and I think, I don't know if your kids do it down there, but up here, in sixth grade, they make all the sixth graders do orchestra or band it's like required. You don't have, like there's no way around. Like you have to do it. So, and my son did it when he was in 6th grade. He did I can't think of what it's called. It's like maybe a cello, but not a cello. I'm not good with instruments, but it's something
a viola.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he does up by the neck. Yeah, I can't think of what it's called, but yeah, that's what he did, and he enjoyed it. So hopefully, that'll be something he can do when he wants to get older and wants to play more instruments.
Yeah, I wish they did do that here. Unfortunately, not. At least not at my boys' school. They make guitar available at 7th grade, so that'll be next year for my oldest. And I'm like, well, you're gonna have to choose between art and guitar. And he's actually a pretty decent artist. Like he's a better artist on paper than I am. And
good.
And he's 11.
That's awesome.
I'm like, dude, keep this creative outlet going.
It's in his blood, man. It's in his blood.
I'm like, I can get you guitar lessons outside of school. I'm not going to teach you because I don't have the patience, but I have plenty of guitars for you to play on and practice on and do whatever.
Yeah. And I was going to say for me, I've always wanted my children to be better than me at anything when it comes to, just because you want that as a father, you want them to be better than you. So if your kids are into basketball, you want them to be a better basketball player than you, or your kids in your instances of musicians, they want to be better than you, like go out and play band or do concerts and if they want to. And of course you sound like you're a supporting father when it comes to their aspirations and dreams if they ever have that for that particular industry.
But, so now I the boys are in swimming, so we do that on we do that Tuesdays. My oldest has Boy Scouts on Monday, and then they have karate, and then my youngin has Cub Scouts on Thursday. And, like I said, what's sleep?
I feel you, brother.
It's busy, but, it's a lot of fun because I get to see them just learn and grow and compete and just enjoy. My youngest, the last karate tournament they were in, it was 2 points for every kick, regardless. So usually it was always 2 points for a headshot with a kick, but this one it was all kicks. And so my 9-year-old, he landed one, and then he immediately went for another, and he was jumping and kicking. And this other little kid, who was a little bit taller than mine, he didn't jump. And he went for what usually is a legal kick. It caught him. It was the end of the match for him. Oh. And even with a cup, his match was over. And
got hit there.
So we're afterwards. This lady walks up and she says, "Man, look at these 2 medals. You guys must have done really well." And my oldest, I almost won my match. It came down to the very last point. And my youngin, because neither one of them have any shame, he looks up at her in his most innocent and loud 8-year-old voice at the time. "I got kicked in the nuts." and I'm just mortified. I look at her. Now this lady, she was maybe 60. And I'm just like, well, kids say the darndest things.
I was thinking that.
Yeah. Just got to kind of shrug it off and move on. And that's honestly, that's a lot of parenting in general. Whether it be your dealings with the kids or the kids, like they fall down and scrape their knee or something. That I think that was the hardest thing to learn, was to just develop a really good poker face, like especially when they're learning to walk and they're just barely stumbling along, and then they get going at full speed, and then whop and face plant. and you just want to be like, oh my gosh, I want to just run over and help this little child because, it's my child.
It's traumatic.
And you look them straight in the face. And you're like, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Brush it off. You'll be all right. And after a while, like my kids would physically brush the fake dirt off of them. And they're like, okay, I'm good.
That's awesome. So, okay. So we know you're an active dad. You mentioned the Scouts. You're a musician. This is the stuff you do for yourself. You have swimming, martial arts, and I know at one point one played soccer. So we said we're going to talk about the co-parenting aspect of all this. Before we dive deep into that, if you don't mind, how long were you married?
So I was married for 18 years. And let's see. So my oldest is 11 now. Mm-hmm. So I was up until my oldest was 9. That's when we started all that.
The process.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good word to use for it.
Yeah.
My parents, my folks were always together. Up until my mom passed, and so that and same with my ex. Her parents were together up until her mom passed. And so, neither one of us, it was kind of uncharted territory. And, I think we get along pretty well now. And it helps because we're able to co-parent a lot easier. Like we're not having to hide attitude from the kids. Like I know was happening early on in all this. It's like, all right, look, we're at a kid's function. I'll check the attitude at the door. And, now it's not really there. So it's just, whatever. We're doing something. Oh, your mom's going to be there? Okay. No big deal. But yeah, it's co-parenting can be difficult.
Yeah.
And as long as the parents communicate well with each other. And I think one thing that I think she and I do really well is we still are a united front.
That's
your
awesome.
mom says you can't watch this. Guess what? You can't watch it at my place either.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
Your mom says no to this activity. Guess what? Nope. Not going to do it. And that way we still give them consistency, even though, they're not staying at my house every night or they're not staying at her house every night. And so, I think that really is the key to making it work. As long as she and I communicate well, the rest of it will fall into place.
Yeah. I think that's awesome that you said that because, we've all seen it. We have friends that are divorced. When we were kids, we've seen it. It's like one kid would come to the playground. Oh, well, my dad lets me do X at his house. And my mom lets me do X at her house.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're a kid, it's like, oh, man, that's cool. I want to go with you to your dad's house or your mom's house because you get to do these things. Whereas the other ones you can't do. Like so my mother and my father divorced when I was, 3 or 4, something like that.
Mm.
And, I was raised by my mom, single mom for a while. She got remarried to my dad, my stepdad. I call my biological father Pops. And there were certain things I could do over there at his place, and he would try to be fun, and as I look at it when I get older, I'm like, it's probably weren't always the best things. They never put me in danger, but the consistency, right, between parents kind of went out of the window a little bit. And it's not as egregious as other parents I've seen, where it's like a kid goes to their other parent's house and they just run amok. It's like the inmates are running the prison, so to speak. It's crazy to see that. And now that I'm a parent, I can understand the frustration if my wife and I were to divorce. It's like, okay, when we lived together, we had these rules, and now you're just like, forget it.
Yeah, you see that, and like the other real bad one that I've seen was one parent trying to buy the love of the child versus the other.
Yes.
Like one,
Yes.
mom said I can't, or dad said I can't have an Xbox. So, well, not in this house. And
Right.
and so the other parent goes and gets an Xbox or a PlayStation or whatever.
I won this year.
Yeah.
The gamification of your children, man.
Yeah, and to me that's just wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because who wins?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's not a winner, because I mean you're polluting their mind with it's a falsehood.
And they're going to think it's going to be like that growing up too. So when they get old enough to be adults and have children, and they're put in that same situation, they're going to think it's okay. And that's not the way it should be.
Yeah. It's just setting a horrible example. And when you say that, oh, this is the norm. Ooh.
I think it's also important. You're talking about basically co-parenting as a team.
Yeah, it absolutely is a team. And, we're able to rely on each other to do the right thing for the kids.
Yeah.
And, that goes a long way. I mean, she takes my oldest to Boy Scouts, and, I stop by the Scout meeting and, get a little in-person time, which is always nice.
Absolutely.
And then I take them both to their other activities. And due to a work schedule, she's not able to make it to those, which is a shame, but it's outside of my control.
I've been reading to kind of like prepare for this discussion. I was reading an article on helpguide.org. We could put that in the show notes if you want to take a look at it, our dear listeners. But like, I was reading about rules, and I'm sure because you started off as a team, your rules some are probably the same, others maybe similar. And then because you're no longer a unit in the same household, others have changed. Do you feel, since you two have separated and become a co-parenting team, the rules have shifted quite a bit?
The only real
Or at all?
rule that has changed is bedtime for them at my place. And the reason it's changed is I let them stay up later so that way they can FaceTime with their mom every night when she gets off of work. Because otherwise they wouldn't have an opportunity to speak with her or see her face to face for like 3, 4, sometimes 5 days. And and that was part of our divorce agreement too, is allow the other parent to FaceTime with the kids, at a reasonable hour, whenever. And of course, we have to stretch that sometimes, but so sometimes the boys are up until like 9:30, 9:45, 10 o'clock on a school night, but they still get a solid 8 hours, and they're not falling asleep at their desks or anything like that. And so until we start to see a behavior like that, then we might revisit it and say, hey, look, you either need to be able to FaceTime earlier, whatever that entails, whether it's find a new job or whatever, or just say, look, kids, just because I don't FaceTime you every night doesn't mean I don't care about you any less. And I've told my boys that. I'm like, hey, if I'm traveling, I don't know what the wireless coverage is going to be like. I don't know if I'm going to be able to FaceTime you or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, if it doesn't happen, just know that I love you. This doesn't change how I feel about you. And that, actually kind of leads into, a difficult conversation that I had to have with my kids. And that was the conversation that Daddy is moving out of the house when we started our whole divorce thing. And I was dreading this conversation for like a week before I even had to have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we ended up having it twice. So one was a week out of the actual move out date. And then the next was today's the day.
Oh man. This is like right in the fire, huh?
And the first one, nobody cried. I thought I was going to be honest. And there's some guys, oh, Ned, if you cry, you're not a man. Wrong. Yeah. There was a strength that.
I hate when people say that daddies don't cry.
Yeah.
Well,
like, come on.
I was seeing this strength a long time ago, and he says, Ned, if you don't deal with your emotions are going to deal with you. And being a single dad, that's doubly important because, I've got to make sure that I'm available, and, if I got to take 5 to go up into my room and, handle my emotions, then so be it. But, I can come back down and be like, all right, boys, here we go. But so, yeah, no one cried then. And, I was like, look, this isn't your fault. This is a decision that I made. Your mom and I just work better if I'm living somewhere else. This isn't anything you've done. It's nothing you haven't done. This is not on you in any way, shape, or form. And I was like, look, you're still going to go to the same school. You're still going to do Cub Scouts, still going to do karate. You're still going to see me all the time. Just sometimes you're going to be sleeping in my place. Sometimes you're going to be sleeping over here. And the second time we had that conversation, my oldest got pretty emotional about it. And he was genuinely upset. And, as he should be. But within about a week, he saw that everything I had told him was true. He was still doing Cub Scouts. He was still doing karate, still doing swimming, all this stuff. Actually, they hadn't started doing swimming yet, but they were still doing all of their planned activities, and they would still see me all the time, and they still saw their mom all the time. And once he saw, he's like, hey, Dad wasn't joking.
Keeping that promise is so important when you're not in that house, isn't it?
And I make sure to, tell him every day and just give him a hug and say, hey, I love you, dude. And let them know, they know where they stand with me. Yeah. And
that's good.
And I don't ever speak ill of their mom to them.
Thank God, man.
Well, it won't do them any favors.
Yeah.
And honestly, it would just poison them against me. And I'm not trying to do that. And whatever my opinion of their mom, they're smart kids. They'll figure it out.
Exactly. We don't give children enough credit, do we?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, that's honestly what kind of prompted my whole divorce process to begin with. I had dropped my kids off with my dad, and I went and was running a bunch of errands. Meanwhile, my ex was at home just reading. But, I drop them off, I pick them up, we all get in my truck, and I'm like, man, I had a really busy afternoon. And before I could say another word, my 11-year-old says, Dad, I feel like Mom treats you like her butler. And he was 9 years old when he says this.
That's crazy.
And I had no idea how much they were picking up on. And I'd already been contemplating divorce for a while, but when he said that, I called my lawyer the next day and I said, "Yeah, let's go."
Wow.
And well,
Man.
I couldn't keep on going, showing them this and say, this is normal. This is how a family, this is how a couple is supposed to be and how they're supposed to be happy. And this is how you're supposed to expect to be treated. And I said, in good conscience, I can't do it anymore because I don't want them to grow up and get married and then let them think, oh, well, mom did this with dad. It must be normal. It must be okay.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
So I got a question for you, Ned. Real quick. Do y'all have like different parenting styles? Or y'all think y'all about the same when it comes to parenting styles?
Oh, we're pretty similar, to be honest. At least we were. I mean, I'm not privy as to what goes on in the house now, but we still talk, and it's like, hey, this happened. What do you think? Or she'll tell me, oh, well, he did this, and here's what I did, and I'm like, yeah, I totally agree with that. It's rare that it'll come up, especially now. It's rare that something will come up when it comes to like raising the kids that we disagree on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's one thing I've always thought of is when it comes to co-parenting, if that is a reason to be separated, if that's, because their parenting styles are different, because there are a lot of couples in the world that have kids that have different parenting styles and they may go through that same situation. And so, I just wanted to ask that just to pick your brain on that.
It's valid. I mean, depending on how drastically different the parenting styles are, it's absolutely valid for a reason to separate because it'll cause the two parents to fight.
Yes.
Over and over and over. And it's kind of like politics. If I talk to someone who vehemently disagrees with me politically, no matter how good of a point I think I bring up, I'm never going to convince them they're right or that I'm right. And they're never going to convince me that they're right because we don't have a way to articulate it in a way that we can say, look, take a step back. And so, and I have friends of mine that, wholeheartedly disagree. And we've stayed friends because we just don't talk politics. And that's it. But yeah, as far as like a real differing parenting style, I can see where that could cause a discord between two folks.
Yeah.
And, it's just one of those things where you just either have to learn to move forward or just try your best or just try your best.
Yeah.
We're gonna pause there. You may have to say this again because I'm pretty sure that got picked up. So anyway, continue.
Honestly, I think that's a perfect thing to inject in a dad mode podcast. Sometimes you can be in the middle of doing something that you love, that you're passionate about, and you gotta. The best way I can put it is it was the signature in a guy's email that I worked with a long time ago, and the signature was, sometimes you got to drop the hammer.
Yeah, seriously.
And that's
very true.
I mean, honestly, I would leave all of it in just for that because it's like, dude, you don't get to stop being a dad.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, you can, but you're a piece of garbage if you do, at least in my book.
Mm-hmm.
It's
there you
especially by choice.
Well,
Unless you just know you're a bad guy or whatever.
I mean, if it's by choice, I think poorly of someone who does that.
Yeah.
If it's not by choice, well then, brother, I feel sorry for you. And
that's something we haven't really discussed yet on the show, and that might be like a whole episode. But there are people who have become parents. I won't even just leave it at dads. Become parents who know they're not going to be good. They're not ready. They're not good people. Good, or I don't want to say good people. Maybe they aren't. I don't know. It's hard to word that.
well,
But there are some people who know they're not right to be a parent, and they know that even though they have children, they won't mature, and there's like maybe this level of resentment or whatever.
yeah, and honestly, a lot of it is just being ready. I have a friend. His only child was born when he was 14, and he was not ready to be a parent.
Wow.
And his parents ended up raising his son. But I mean, at 14 years old, how do you expect someone to be a dad at 14? At least be a halfway decent one. I won't even say be a good one. I'd just say be a halfway decent one.
I know someone right now who's a mother. Her daughter is about the same age as my oldest, and her youngest daughter is the same age as my youngest daughter. And I believe she had her oldest when she was 14 or 15. It's crazy, man. I can't imagine what that's like.
Yeah, dude, at 14, I was all about skateboarding and 14-year-old boy stuff. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're like literally still a kid. And that's how that's how it should be.
Cue the Everlast. Then you really might know what it's like.
For real. But I mean, even as a single dad, I haven't had it that bad. Like the most difficult time as a parent for me was actually when I was still married. My ex was a stay-at-home mom, and I got fired from my job. And I went from having a good job and being able to do everything that my kids wanted and cover all the bills. And then we don't have health insurance. I have savings to cover the mortgage. We've got just enough for groceries. Meanwhile, the kids at that time were 5 and 3. No health insurance for a 5 and 3-year-old boys. Because at that age, boys tend to be a little more rambunctious than girls. I'm not saying all, but some. Mine definitely were. And it was terrifying because part of the default role in being a dad, and I'm not saying it's correct, but it's been this way for years, is just the family dynamic in general up until about like the mid 80s was the dad is the provider.
We've talked about this. Yeah.
And I've lost my ability to provide. There was also a big layoff right around the same time at a different tech company here in town. So the market was saturated with IT people all looking for a job.
Yep.
And it took me 2 months to find a new job.
Jeez.
And it took me 2 months to find a new job. And I took a 30% pay cut just so I could have money coming in so I could pay the bills.
Just to keep the lights on, huh?
Just to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
And still didn't have insurance because this new place wouldn't give me insurance until I'd been there for like 90 days. And that's a level of fear I'd never felt before. It was, I don't know what I'm going to be able to do. I'm like, what? Do I sell my truck? So that way I've got 8 months of mortgage payments.
Yeah.
And then what do I do?
How are you going to get to work?
Yeah.
I mean, you can take the wife's
right
vehicle,
there.
but what if an emergency happens? Then she is without a vehicle.
And neither kid was in school yet. So I take this job. I hated it, but it was necessary. And I eventually was able to get an interview and get hired on as a contractor at the place I'm at now, which eventually I was able to move from contract to full-time, which was really nice. So I put in my 2 weeks notice with this other place, but I cut it short by 1 day because, well, 1 business day, because it would have meant my last day would have been the Tuesday after a Labor Day. And I was like, why am I going to come in after a weekend, work 1 Tuesday, and then quit? I'm like, how about we just make a clean break on that Friday before? And they're like, well, since you didn't give us a full 2 weeks, I'm like, don't worry, I won't use you as a reference. And so, but since I did that, they effectively said your notice is served immediately. Since you provided us less than 2 weeks notice, we'll just count this as you quitting today. Okay.
Man.
You know what, though? It was a blessing, because had that not happened, I wouldn't have been able to take my son to school on his first day of kindergarten. And, I wouldn't have traded that for anything.
Yeah.
Hey,
sacrifices you got to make as a dad, man. That's good. Yeah. You do have to drop whatever you got to drop to make things happen.
You got to be there. You got to be there. That's there's certain
game, man.
There's certain milestones you don't want to miss.
Yeah. And, I just count myself lucky that I was able to do it. And granted, that was one of the most stressful points in my life to that date. But, yeah, I found light at the end of the tunnel that wasn't a train coming at me. And, I was lucky it only took 2 months to find a job, but that was a tough 2 months. And, luckily, my kids they didn't notice. They were just like, oh, Dad's home.
I think that's a testament to, well, your planning and the way you handled your responsibilities financially, etc. You were in a position to where you were able to provide for your family, even when you weren't able to actively provide for your family as an employee. You were between jobs. And thank goodness it didn't last longer than it needed to.
Do have to give credit where credit's due. That actually was in my ex's savings, and it wasn't in mine. But I'm pretty sure I paid it all back. I don't know. At this point, it's a moot point anyway. But I mean, that thing took years to recover from. And the guy who fired me actually tried reaching out to me and said, hey, I know things didn't end well at this other place, but I got something that might interest you. I'm like, bruh.
I'm good.
I'm like, I wouldn't trust you.
No, thanks.
I wouldn't trust you. I wouldn't trust you to catch my sneeze.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to think of a way to speak without cursing, just like I've learned from my own children. Yeah, like I was driving the boys to school, and traffic was all kinds of jacked up and people are blocking the intersection and, you know, making it so nobody can get through. And I'm like, man, we look at these jerks. And my oldest says, Dad, if I could cuss right now, I would. And, you know, if my younger son hadn't been in the truck, I totally would have given him a pass. But I didn't want to set a bad example for his brother.
Oh yeah, I bet. You know, well, first of all, great job, man. You recovered from that. I mean, that's a hardship. You know, you were resilient. And I mean, the world has changed because of the pandemic. There are people still dealing with hardships from that. I would say that is kind of like a dad mode in and of itself. You know what I mean? You activated a mode that allowed you to keep looking for the job, providing for your family, not making your family feel the effects of that. Well, so, and it's real quick, we like to ask our guests, you know, what dad mode means to them. I don't want to speak for you on that. And with that, do you have a particular dad mode, or do you have a particular dad mode?
Well, it's, you know, never give up. You know, it's, I don't see it as there's a destination at the end. I see it as a journey to be enjoyed. And, you know, that's what being a dad is for me is, you know, I see my kids grow and learn and develop, and I see their personalities come out, and I love it. They make me laugh every day, and it's not laughing at them, it's laughing with them. Right now I'm having trouble teaching my youngest about sarcasm because he still takes everything literally. And, you know, we're at the optometrist, and he's like, what's this machine? And the lady says, oh, that takes a picture of your entire eyeball. And I was like, yeah, dude, they take your eyeball out of your head so they can do it. And he's like, and I was like, dude, I'm kidding. I'm like, come on, man. I'm like, they wouldn't seriously do that.
But every time they go into, they're like, oh, no.
But, you know, it's, I count myself lucky that my kids are an absolute joy, and they don't ever feel like a burden to me. I mean, sometimes it makes life difficult. You know, every so often I have to take them to the laundromat when I'm doing laundry because I don't have a washer and dryer right now. But just got to make the best out of it. And, you know, and I try and use that as a teaching moment for them. I'm like, hey, sometimes life isn't fun, but you can always bring a laptop, you know, or you can do something, and so you're not just sitting there like a bump on a log. It's like, hey, if we plan, even though me doing laundry kind of sucks, you can still do something to entertain yourself. You know, and just, it's like, hey, you know, I can go to this place. I'm not going to have a good time, but you know what? Whether or not I have a good time is on me. It's not on everyone else.
That reminds me, and I may have talked about it before. There's a book that Rich and I are reading called The Daily Dad, and there's a chapter in there. So what this is every day, 366 lessons. I say lessons, but paragraphs. You read it, and you take it with you for the day. It's actually right there on the bookshelf. There's the Daily Stoic and the Daily Dad. So Carr and I on WFS, we read Daily Stoic. Me, Trey, and Rich all read Daily Dad. It's called You Are the Toy. And You Are the Toy is hilarious to me because it rings true. Sometimes your kids will nag you, pull all this stuff out, and then you go to play with them, and it's like, all right, now I'm gonna pivot to something else.
Yep.
Or sit down, let's watch this. Cool. I'm ready. Let's rock. 5 minutes into it, they want to change it, and they want to change it again, and they want to change it again. You know, and this is a very extreme paraphrasing of that, or what I gleaned from that book, but it's just about being with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm hearing you say you take them to the laundromat and the entertainment is on you or whatever, it's like you're even though you're doing something as routine and mundane as washing your clothes, you could still make it an experience with your children and say, hey, you know what? While these whites are running, let's play Uno, or link up a switch, or maybe let's go outside and count pennies. I don't know, whatever the thing is.
Well, they're always happy to go because they give out free popcorn. And I'm like, hey, you know
I'll
what?
go.
Simple pleasures. I'm like, hey, if that's all it takes, awesome.
Hey, that's not bad. That's not bad. Free popcorn. I'll wash a load for some free popcorn.
Hey, when it comes to laundromats, this place is actually like kind of bougie. So
you're back again. So would you like some popcorn?
All they need is like to have like a towel over their arm and yes. How are you doing today, Saw?
I want to talk about something fun real quick. I know we're coming up on time here. We're running into overtime. So what's dating like for you, man? Or maybe that's not so fun. I don't know.
It's not because I do so much with the kids right now. I just don't have time.
Mm.
I mean, I've looked. I was talking with one person and they don't have kids.
Mm.
And I'm like, wow, you're close to my age and you have a level of freedom that I can only dream about now.
Right.
And it just wouldn't have worked out.
They don't understand.
Oh no, this person understood fully.
Oh, my bad.
In fact, she was the one that said, nah, you don't have time. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
That's fair.
Wow.
That's totally fair. Would I like to? Of course. I'll just have to find someone who says we can only go out like every other weekend and be cool with that.
Yeah.
But my kids, we were on the way home from school one day and just completely at random, my boys said, Dad, we don't want a stepmom. And I'm like, where on earth did this come from? I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, why? Why don't you want a stepmom? And they said, well, what if she's mean to us? And I was like, dude, do you honestly think I would bring someone into your lives like that who would be mean to you for no reason? You know how fast I would kick that person to the curb? And they're like, you would? I'm like, of course. Like, this isn't even a conversation.
Absolutely.
The second
they're deal.
Yeah.
This is how it goes.
Bingo.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, the second they're ugly like that for no reason whatsoever, bye. I'm like, yeah, no, we don't need that kind of negativity.
Yeah, and that's good. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, you gotta put the kids first when it comes to that situation.
Absolutely.
And I have a right to be happy. Don't get me wrong, but if someone's going to treat my kids like that, guess what? That doesn't make me happy.
Well, yeah.
And of course, I don't expect them to love my kids like I love my kids, because that's a parental bond that, it's like the day your kid was born and they wrap them up like a burrito in that swaddling cloth and then weigh them and then they let you hold them. And it's like, I made this.
Right. Right.
Well, part of it. I didn't do the cooking, but
yeah.
But
you just provide the ingredients.
I was afraid to share this on the show. I'll just say it. There's an old Chappelle joke. I said it to every one of my children when they were born. Parents, if you have children in the room, cover their ears. You were swimming in my balls, man. And now you're here.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I have not shared that skit with my kids. But
I said it when they didn't. It was like literally the day each one of them were born.
Okay.
To which my wife looked at me and was just like, oh God, he's gonna do it again. On 2 and 3.
But then it's gonna I can see it happening now as they get to be like 20 years old. It's like, man, Dad, I remember when I came out at you, you told me that.
Yeah.
So we all say kids say the darndest things. Man, kids remember the strangest things.
For real.
Oh my gosh.
All
right. Well,
yeah. So that's been my journey. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, some tears. But overall, more good than bad. And my boys they're happy, they're healthy, they're doing pretty decent in school, and they've got great hearts. And they have good manners. And I couldn't ask for anything more than that.
That's what it's all about, my brother. That's what it's all about. Hey, I want to go around the room real quick and share any dad moments. Ned, do you have anyone to share?
So my dad was career military, and his dad was career military, and his dad was career military, and it goes back quite a long time.
Wow.
So military folk are they're known for speaking their mind, and so my dad, if I forgot to do something or I was running late because I didn't take care of what I needed to, he would look at me and he would say, "Well, son, prior planning prevents piss poor performance."
That's a dadism.
And, you can't argue with it.
That's true.
I worked in a retail store. I worked in a retail store around Christmas one year, and the hottest toy of the season was sold out forever and ever. And this guy comes in on Christmas Eve trying to find this thing. And I said, "Look, sir, I could probably get fired for this, but my dad used to tell me all the time." He said, "Prior planning prevents piss poor performance." And he looks at me and he said, "Yeah, you probably could get fired for that, but I can't argue it. So you have a Merry Christmas, sir."
There we go.
Oh, shoot. That's good. Stealing that, by the way. That will be said.
The nice way is failure to prepare on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part.
Oh, I've said that plenty of times.
But the 6 P's, hit them with the 6 P's and game over.
What about you, Big Rich?
Mine is this: when kids say "I love you." I think that's my main thing, and I'm that type of dad. It just melts my heart whenever they say it to me. And so yeah, that's my dad moment, and cherish it 100% every day you hear it.
Absolutely.
My dad moment will be my son's 5th birthday party today. Thank you to everyone who came out, man. That dude had a blast. And shout out to my wife. I'll show y'all pictures. She made a dope cake for his birthday. It's Ninja Turtles themed. So he likes the new Ninja Turtles movie. But yeah.
Oh man, that's what's up.
Dude, I'm still cracking up over the 6 Ps. I seriously got to find a way to inject that. I'm going to do that at my new job at some point. That should make everybody laugh. The new guy's, he's on fire. Ned, thank you for coming out, man, being a guest on our show. I've been wanting to have you involved in one of these podcasts in some way, shape, or form or another. You're helping us expand the Dadaverse, and we'd love to have you back, man.
Well, hey, thank you all so much for having me. It was a great time, and hopefully we can get some other topics going and share some laughs and just enjoy our time as dads as long as we've got it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Ned. Thanks a lot, man.
And for those of you who have been paying attention to the news in the last couple of weeks, Mexico revealed some aliens, and it's pretty crazy. We talked a little bit about it on WFS, shameless plug. Shout out to the boys, Trey M and Carr. But it got me thinking, how does one organize a space party? And then it hit me. I was like, dude, you plan it.